one thing I would like to ask here is, KD said something about when they were initially put together and they were operating, they had a very efficient operation. So one would think that policing, or they had some standards in which they were able to operate effectively. What has gone wrong?
May I comment?
Please.
So I don't believe there were ever standards of policing in Nigeria. I mean, we once talked about Dele Udo, who was murdered on the streets of Nigeria in the 70s. What is different from what has happened in Lekki, apart from the fact that maybe the state introduced elements so that they could take over the events going on in Nigeria. So, you know, if we had an intrinsic standard, which is what we're talking about the evaluation of the mind, the hiring process, treating officers in the line of duty, so to support them, then yes, we may have issues, but those issues will not be as barbaric as we see. I asked the question, some of these guys who have been protesting, again, legitimately protesting, they say they want jobs. Do we believe these guys are employable? Because if you get rid of SARS, you have a good amount of young and well-educated people about to be employed. Get rid of the bad cops and employ these guys. But can we really employ these guys? If you look at a lot of the videos you've seen, whether from Benin, whether from Lagos, essentially it's all coming from the South. The straight up murder of the other citizen, just because somebody is wearing a police uniform, that in itself is enough to cause you mental instability. But our people carry dead bodies, that we share dead videos as if we're sharing Christmas presents. So for me, there's never been a proper standard, and there's never been an incentive by the politicians, whether state or federal, to really put in place a process that allows us to have trust and transparency. If a policeman stops me today, whether I'm in England or in the US, where they also have their own issues, or in Germany, that policeman will put my details in a traceable system. A policeman stops you in Nigeria, there is no traceability. So standards for me are not just their people, they're systemic, they're processes. So we don't have those, unfortunately. And those are the big issues we have in Nigeria today. And at the moment, very close to the position where we fall over the cliff. We are very close to falling over the cliff, and our elites do not recognize that. They see it as a yellow or blue game at the moment. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Sorry, Sosa, one moment, please. Yeah, because we just have to do this together. It's more of an interactive thing, and I'm enjoying it actually. I want Alero, as a lawyer, I'm not going to wear the lawyer's hat here at all. I want you to tell us more about the Police Act, because it's very interesting. Yes, I know the Police Act, but even in this country, I can tell you that the average PC would have to know why you are arrested and knows the law or whatever. And I'm sure some police officers in Nigeria actually do know the law. It depends on their ranking. Yeah, but tell us more about the Police Act that can help, because we're also going to be looking at possibly community policing. So I would like to hear your views, particularly about what would be the hindrances that may prevent community policing, or how would the Police Act help before we move into the bigger reforms? Because right now we need a stopgap to treat this issue. We don't want a situation where we are waiting before the whole thing is reformed, before they are mentally checked. What is the stopgap that can kind of reduce the tension in terms of the police reforms? Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kide. The Police Act is like a regulation for the police, and it's just like a constitution for the Nigerian constitution that I think everyone should know like the back of their hand, irrespective of their profession, because that's the tenets on which the country and its leadership is being run. But I want to say that majority of people just look at it as nonchalant. They have this nonchalant attitude and say, "Oh, we have people in the House of Assembly, we have people in the House of Rep, we have people and senators that looks at these laws for us." But from what we've seen, we're able to we can say that most of our legislators are just there to just be there. They're just there doing nothing. They're just there to, like I always say, to just mark their presence there. So the Police Act said a lot of things, because while I was still in the university, then I didn't really get to really look at the Police Act. But while I was in law school, I looked at the Police Act very, very well. In the Police Act, there are steps and guidance that the police ought to look. And most of the time, I just get so down, because it says you have to respect for human rights. It's there in the Police Act. When you meet an individual that you find suspicious and you want to search the person has the right to search you first before you search the person. But most Nigerians today don't know about that. That a policeman can search, that you can search a policeman first before you allow the policeman to search you. So I think education, enlightenment, and sensitization is very paramount in this fight for NSAS, because most of the police, they don't really know what they're doing. They don't have respect for human rights. You see someone, you just shout, hey, you there, stop there. The person is a human being, for crying out loud. Respect is reciprocal. You should be able to say, hello, sir. I've lived in the UK. I've called the police, and a policeman is telling me, yes, ma'am, can you do this, ma'am? What do you know? And I was like, oh my God, when will Nigeria get to this stage? We can do this. You know, the Police Act stipulates lots of things that police can do. That there's a laid down rules for respect to human rights. When you want to arrest someone, you should treat the person with respect. Don't shoot anybody unless the criminal is getting away. And where the criminal is getting away, you should aim for the legs, because if you aim for any other part of the body, you're meant to kill that person, and that is not meant to, because that's an extrajudicial killing. But we find out that in Nigeria today, there's extrajudicial killings going on and nobody is even batting an eyelid. It's almost like a normal thing. I was talking to someone, to a friend in Nigeria. I was like, a lot of people don't even know that it's only the judge that has a right to take someone's life in Nigeria. Unless a judge sentences you to death or life imprisonment, nobody has a right. Even if you are seen in the crime scene and millions of people saw you in the act, nobody has a right to take your life. You still have a right as a human being to go through trial. Is either you get acquitted or you are sentenced. And when you are sentenced, there have been situations whereby in the prison today, a lot of people are dead. Some people, while I was still practicing in Benin, and there was someone in prison that was sentenced to death. He's been there for 10 years, but he has not been killed. Well, why? Because the judge did not put which means he should be sentenced. Is it by hanging or shooting? That's why he has not been killed. So there are laid down rules for this that should be done. But I don't know how we got to this extent that the police just do anything, just kill anybody, and is not held accountable. So I think for the police to be reformed, the police needs to have respect for human life. The police needs to respect you as an individual. The police needs to see you as a human being, as not as this subject. That's why I made emphasis about education, because I don't want to say it's only if you want to be a policeman, you should be able to, maybe you have to study sociology, you have to study courses whereby you interact with people. But I think it helps if it gets to a level where we say, oh, the police for policemen to be recruited into Nigeria, I think the lowest yardstick should be an undergraduate certificate. I think it's good. I know it's going to be difficult because they're not going to have the numbers compared to our population in Nigeria, but I think it should. If you really want to be professional, I think it should really be, because an average Nigerian doesn't know their rights. You see policemen breaking into people's doors and just going because they want to check. They just break into your house and they just start searching without search warrant. I know a policeman can go into your house without a search warrant, or like the law always ameliorates laws, that there's always an exception, unless the policeman thinks that you have something incriminating in your house, so he can come. But most times you just see the policeman stopping people just because they are well dressed, stopping people because of course they're driving flashy cars, stopping people and searching their phones. You can search me if you think I have some incriminating substance, but first I need to search you. But I think an average Nigerian today will be so scared to even tell the policeman, oh, I need to search you before you search me, because there have been situations whereby people alleged and say, oh, I didn't have the cocaine on me, but it was the policeman searched me. I think the policeman put the cocaine in my pocket. So that's why the law says, okay, if the policeman wants to search you, you have the right to say, okay, let me search you first. But things are not done that way. And I think a typical SARS officer, if he wants to search you and you tell him, oh, I need to search you first, I think he will shoot you. That's the stage we've come to. People get scared of the police. So I think if we have to reform the police, we have to really monitor the progress of the reform, because I know it's not going to be something that we're going to do for a year, 2 years. Well, it needs to be monitored. And I think the time is now, because today this past week has been full of sorrow for us Nigerians. So I think if we need to do it, we need to do it now, because I don't want a situation whereby in 2 years' time, in 3 years' time, we'll back to this stage. And no, I think we need to move forward. I think that we need to progress from where we are today. Thank you.
Thank you, Alero. There are a lot of fundamentals that Dr. Nabulele Niyi has talked about. Dr. Nabulele is saying in terms of the recruitment, the orientation, and the retention, that it needs to be looked at. And also, he's talked about the mental state assessment, as well as to look at the premorbid personalities. There's also a question on the chat box. It says, out of curiosity, but it's okay. Do you feel there isn't some cultural stigma for mental health to be able to give assessment all over the country? So let's hold that there. Niyi has also talked about that there needs to be an element of trust and transparency, and that is missing at the moment. And also, Alera has talked about accountability. She's talked about the need for monitoring and an emphasis on education, and that we need to be doing it now. So if I can call on Dr. Agbons, is there anything you would like to say before Niyi, Dr. Nabulele, and Alero, they respond? Dr. Agbons.
Okay, while we are waiting for Dr. Agbons, let me put this to Peter, our brother Peter in Switzerland. What is the policing system like over there that Nigeria can learn from in terms of recruitment?
Yeah, thank you, KD. If you like, we compare the police here in Switzerland to what we have in Nigeria, it's a far cry. Because one, when a policeman stops you, he needs to introduce himself to you, to tell you, I am this person, I'm a police officer, and this is the reason why I'm stopping you. But you see, in Nigeria, the policeman will stop you and already accuse you even before giving you a chance to say who you are. And another thing, the policeman will not just break into your house here. There's usually a warrant, which I believe is also the same thing in Nigeria, but they don't follow that procedure. They just come, break into your house, even accuse you of things that you don't know of. And a third thing that I also noticed with policemen here, when they put up a roadblock like they do in Nigeria, you are already informed like a kilometer before that you need to slow down, not a situation where you see policemen putting logs of wood on the road, and then you see they come out from nowhere and they harass you actually. So I think like our first speaker, Mrs. Aldero, rightly said, education is vital, because most of our police officers, if you look at their training, it's very brutal. So it is not unexpected for them to come out and act in such brutal ways that they do. And these people, they don't have really job security, because here in Switzerland, the policeman, there's no way you can bribe him. It's impossible. Because he got it all. He got the social security, he got very, very good stuff to sustain him. So there's no way you can bribe a police officer. And when you talk to them, you know that they are really enlightened in the law of the land. They can actually talk to you person to person with respect. This is also missing in Nigeria. Like Mr. Nee rightly said, our police system is really bad, because I believe since these policemen don't get what they want or what they are supposed to be able to get, they interpret the law based on individual. They just come and they look at you and they give you a fee, which most times you don't even have a chance to negotiate, like Alero did say. Let me stop and allow other people to talk for now.
Thank you, Peter. What Peter has said, there's something very interesting there. There's no job security, and he's talked about roadblocks. Do we have roadblocks in other areas in the world, or is it just a Nigerian or an African thing? Why roadblocks? Is it to do with our mental health? Is it to do with trust?
No, I don't. Let me come in here. I don't think roadblocks has anything really to do with mental health, or per se it's an African thing. Policing has different aspects. And so when the police, I think the original thing of stop and search, even in this country, when you look at PACE, which is the Police and Criminal Justice Act in 1984, it does allow for stop and search. But the thing is, the police have enormous power. It's very interesting that Alero alluded to the fact that you have to also search the police first. That's a very interesting aspect. Obviously, over here, you can't search the police. On that pace, they can stop you if they have reasonable suspicion that you're. It can even be, I don't like the color of your hair, but they don't have to tell you that. It's just that is reasonable suspicion that you are likely to commit crime. And so if a police stops you here, and you don't have any ID on you, that could actually be grounds to say we suspect you are not who you claim to be and take you away. So they can abuse that process. But the thing is, with roadblocks, I think the reason it was introduced to Nigeria is reactionary. And so we have to also be fair in the sense that when people were escaping and doing all sorts of robberies and committing crimes, they were using the highways. And so people will stop. But I think it's been abused. So it's not even only the police. I see from a practical experience, NDLA, customs, all sorts of things. But it's embarrassing that they would just put planks of wood with nails and everything. So it goes back to the training. I think for my mind, training is very, very important. But these police officers are products of Nigeria society. So like somebody said, where are you really going to get them from without, why would you, I think it's needy. You're going to get somebody into the police force you don't know, or from SARS to SWAT or whatever it is. How do they employ them? What is the mechanism? Obasanjo actually, in fairness to when he was president, lamented and said, I told the IG to recruit police officers, and he recruited half of armed robbers into the force. So that's the challenge we have. How do we get out of this? So to me, it would be like a short-term gap. You can't disband the police force. I've joked about that, but section 213 and 214 of the Nigerian Constitution will not allow you to just disband the police force. And even if you do that, what are you going to replace them with? Tanzania did that in 1971. It was not fit for purpose. They scrapped it. They got the UN in to help them out. But that's not practical for us in Nigeria. So the short-term reform is where we need to think outside the box. There has to be reform, like Lero said. Listen, as we speak, I have to be honest that the Nigerian police force, not SARS anymore, is not fit for purpose. And when I say that, people get angry. Even the British police force was accused of not being fit for purpose when somebody jumped the fence and stabbed a police officer in Parliament, guarding the place. A terrorist jumped over, and other police officers were hiding in their cars, and he was able to jump the fence and stab the police officer before, obviously, he was put down. So that's a problem. So for us, what is the short-term solution before we get into the long term of educating them? So I think it's been very, very positive discussion. And I think, yeah, so please, if anybody is able to respond to that.
All right, thank you. I think, Tony, if you can briefly just talk before Dr. Inabulele, if for him to respond to it's okay. But Dr. Tony Agbons, what is your take on this?
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Esosa. Thanks to all the contributors. I just want to say that for me, just like Kede has said, it will start from the recruitment. We need to recruit the right people. I've always said the major challenge with Nigeria, all sectors, not just in the security aspect, we don't have data. We have no database. We can't track anybody. So we have to recruit the right people into the police force. Like Kede have said, training, good training, and then we can take it from there. Modern policing is all about intelligence gathering, not brute force like we have in Nigeria. For most times I go to Nigeria, I'm so scared because especially when you travel by road, they just like point the guns towards you, and these are they are mechanics. The finger can just like go through it, and that is it. So a human being is down. So I think, let me not overflog my speech, is our current police force is not fit for purpose. It's going to be training and retraining, and it's going to take years for us to get it right. Yeah, like Alero said in her opening talk, my own brother had a terrible experience with SARS, some 5 years ago as well. So yeah, and everybody has tales of woes about them. He was almost killed So it's so unfortunate. But I think, like we've all identified, recruitment, training, and then probably we start getting the right people in, we'll be fine.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Agbons. Dr. Enabulele, if you can please respond to Isoke about the assessment, mental health, and the stigma that goes with it.
Oh, thank you very much. Well, like you know, Isoke, our good sister, talked about the issue of, I think, cultural stigma or something, if I got that right. Like you know, culture is, like they always say, is the way of life of the people. And if at any point in time the people now believe that as part of the requirements, based on their existential realities, that a group of people in society need to have this form of assessment, and it becomes an acceptable norm based on evidence, then you no longer can be talking about stigma, because it's an acceptable requirement for you to, of course, be seen as an officer of such an eminent force. So I talked about that when I said, look, medically, we're always a bit cautious before we recommend somebody for mental state evaluation. But again, because again, you need to be very clear and very sure of the evidence, you know, before you, of course, because it has its own implications, like you said, the issue of stigma and all of that. But that is why I'm saying that in this case, if society, and I think the whole society believes that, look, this group of officers needs some level of assessment, so be it. But again, beyond that, I just made a case earlier on that even the law requires that anybody who wants to possess firearm, for instance, must have a mental state assessment. And that's why anybody who wants to carry firearms or want to have acquire firearms, they come to us. I'm a family physician, and one of the requirements is for them to have a mental state assessment. So when you have a police officer who is always a possession of firearm, I mean, certainly it's a requirement for them. And apart from that, like I said, it's clear that these are officers that are exposed to some hazards. They have some exposures, even if it's the daily, duty call on the highways. It's enough to, of course, trigger certain mental instabilities. So you need to regularly be sure that these guys are still within the normal mental frame. Even some of the activities they face on the roads can expose them to what we call acute stress disorder or acute stress reaction. And in some very bad cases, what we call post-traumatic stress disorder. So we must regularly put this into perspective and not just throw people to the highways or to the roadblocks or to their duties, believing that they are still the same human being that you knew them to be yesterday. The events they were exposed to may have triggered certain instabilities. So it's important that at the point of entry, they have this level, this kind of mental state assessment. And then even while they are in the force, some form of psychological orientation and reorientation to, of course, be able to, of course, assess not only their mental, rigidity or agility, if you may put it that way, but also the fact that they are still within that normal mental frame to throw them on society, to attend to the needs of society, rather than, being the opposite of what they were asked to go and do. When even amongst normal human beings, I mean, people always undermine this fact because they believe that, especially in Africa and even in Nigeria, they believe that the way you were born is the way you are still. You still are. I mean, it's not true. Even amongst professionals, you'll be shocked to know that unless and until you have done some level of assessment, you may not know who is actually not stable, mentally, rather than looking at everybody as if they are all the same. So when I was head of department of in my own hospital here, I set up what I call an emotional intelligence and mental health, committee. And I said, look, we're all here working, not knowing what everybody was facing. And I can tell you the findings from that committee were amazing. And that was part of the turnaround of that department in terms of attending to some of those very emotional needs, mental health needs of even your workers, not to talk of people who are regularly exposed to some hazards on the highways and all of that. So more than any other group, I think this group needs it more. Society already believes that, look, these are a group of people. Unfortunately, it has smeared even the very excellent ones in a police force. I mean, today we talk about the likes of former IGP, Arasi, and all of that. Excellent officers, well-bred officers and all of that. Unfortunately, the acts of those others, smear all of them, and it's like painting everybody with the same brush, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. So you need to be able to do this, to know those you need to rehabilitate and get them properly prepared for the day's activity and the rigors of their duties. That's the point I was making.
All right, thank you, Dr. Enabulele. I'm just going to make a few points. On the chat box, she said that we need to have a change in processes, that there needs to be a transparent and an accountable process, that the complaints processes need to be looked at, and there should be a governing body that is independent of the police. In terms of Dr. Enabulele, what Dr. Enabulele has said, I'm just going to add to that. Here in the UK, the police officers, not every police officer is able to carry a firearm. And even before they are able to do so, they have to actually undergo mental health assessment. And even within the police force here in the UK, there are many different mechanisms to help police forces with their health and their well-being. They have within the force itself, they have within the national, and they also have as part of their professional groupings. I don't think there is enough in Nigeria for that. And another thing that has actually happened in Nigeria also is that we keep talking about education now. From my experience, people who joined the police force were not educated, were not part of the educated class. But now maybe they are educated, but however, the standards are very, very low. And I don't think part of the recruitment, the retention, and everything, that they are trained or monitored for them to be effective and efficient in doing their work. Again, we have also talked about the need for them to have adequate income. They don't have. And because of that, they've had to be taking a lot of things into to help themselves. I'm going to call on Niyi to share thoughts on cultural and mindset, and the point that Igor Otaige has raised. Niyi.
Yes, I will do that. I would like to do, I just have 3 points that I would like to touch on, and I'm sure I touch on the culture. So it was Tony who mentioned the lack of data. And I believe it was Dr. Enabule, is it Enabule?
Yes, Enabulele.
Enabulele, okay, good.
Yes.
Who mentioned about, I think it was either Peter or the doctor who mentioned about roadblocks. And then of course, then we have the mindset. So
and the mental state as well.
Yeah.
Are you going to talk about the mental?
Yeah, the mental state is definitely, I'm going to touch on it, definitely. So the roadblock, I like that topic of roadblock. Now, in China, they have roadblocks. They're called multi-layered monitoring capacities through digital cameras. So if you think about a city like Shanghai, 22 million people, if you commit a crime, there's a policeman to catch you within 2 minutes in a 22 million city population. So for me, you cannot get into a train station. If you think about going into Victoria train station or Waterloo, why do I use those 2 train stations? Highly populated, there's a huge throughput of people. If you go to Shanghai train station, you cannot go in there without going through a roadblock, the cameras. So we need to, and I'm using this to tie up the topic that Tony mentioned earlier, the inavailability of data. Today, if we want to reform the police service, if we want to give the opportunities for growth, for employment, we need to start thinking of how do we utilize all these possible solutions. Yeah, so that's one point. Now, if I come back to the topic of the psychological evaluation, the stigma in society, guess what? If I want to be I know perhaps this does not happen anymore in Nigeria, but I know if I want to be a bank manager, I need to be able to count my beans. Yeah, I don't then start complaining that counting of beans is something that is anti-cultural. So if I want to join a club, whether it's a football club or it's a palm wine drinking club, I must at least know how to drink palm wine. Same thing. You want to be a police officer or an enforcement officer, you must have some basic elements that the recruitment requirements have to be met. One of them is psychological evaluation. Mm-hmm. And Alero, when I guess you've also gone through university in England. I was educated in England. It's on an average day in class, you will have a white guy or girl telling you, I would like to be a policeman.
Yes.
And you would think, oh, really? So what are you doing at university for that? Yeah, you're just thinking that, you're processing that because the idea that somebody is telling you that they're going through 3 years of their life at university with you to end up in a uniform as a police somebody, it's like, no, I don't think so, but actually they're going through psychology classes, they're going through sociology classes, they're going through law classes. So when these people come out in England, they get sent to Hendon. In Germany, they have a place in Bavaria where they send them to. And then they go through the professional side of the training.
And they have critical thinking as well.
Yeah. So in short, it doesn't matter whether you are from Kano or you're from, I don't know where, yeah? We have to apply the standards back to the way we are in Nigeria, that the way we must be in Nigeria. So let us see how educated you are. We're not saying you're smart or not smart, but at least we need to have some parameters. And those parameters is something that we must not compromise on based on culture. Otherwise, I will say, I would like to still have my culture where I can just walk around and marry any woman I see, as they used to do in the olden days, because you're the son of Oba or something, yeah? So we've moved away from that because we know it's wrong. And also we must move towards the 21st century. And then I think the last point of the mindset, it's really important. Mindset in the end, we say there is a professor from California. She's been talking about growth mindset, I think, since 1972. But now, in the Google world, everybody now recognizes growth mindset. It means simply, I am not there yet. Yeah. So if we know that we grow progressively, and there's nothing wrong in growing progressively, then we will be able to change our mindset to the future, for the future. Because ultimately, Nigeria is not only 1 in 4 or 1 in 3 Black person you would meet. We are, I think we're number 5 on the list of nations with the youngest population.
Yeah.
So when at the top of that list is Mexico, and then you have the Indians, and in between number 1 to 5, Nigeria is fitting there. But if we're going to reform the police, if we're going to grow the economy, if we're going to have all these things to allow us to live as Nigerians, we need also then to provide the possibility, businesses, to come to invest in our nation. There is no development without economics.
Yeah.
You see that everywhere you go, whether you're in India, whether you're in Thailand, whether you're in Vietnam, whether you're in Taiwan, it is the only way to go. And that's how I would like to, I hope I've touched on all the topics raised by everyone.
You have indeed. Thank you, Nee. That was very good. You've been able to address certain parts of it. I think what I'm going to ask here is that we have a good system in Nigeria. We've got the Youth Service Corps. And I know there was a lot of discipline around the service corps. Do you see that as helping to look? I know what Igo Sagia said is that everything is endemic across the board. That is not just the policing, that we have challenges. However, could we be able to piggyback on what the youth service presents for Nigeria? 1 minute, everyone, if you can, please come up and say something, you know. Starting with Alera, 1 minute, please.
The National Youth Service Corps, I won't say it's no longer fit for purpose. I would say it's an organization that tends to bring Nigerians together, because somebody from the north will be posted to the south, and somebody from the south will be posted to the west, just like that. So as for youths to have the feel of Nigeria. Mm-hmm. So with the National Youth Service Corps, I think it helps. It's been helping, and I think it should remain. It's for sensitization, for you to have a feel of another state's culture, for you to want to see to live in another area of Nigeria and decide that, oh, I want to remain in a particular state. I think it's a good thing. I think it's something that should be allowed to move on. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Peter,
yeah.
What would be your take on that?
Well, I went through that system. I think it is very good. We need it, you know, just like Alera said now. It's a chance for me, like from Edo State, to move up north where I did my youth service back in the days and get to know people from Benue State. It's good. But the relevance is something that we need to look into. What do we do at the National Youth Service? Is it relevant to our training at the schools? Okay. For me as an engineer, I went up to Jigawa State to become a teacher. And I did that for 11 months. And after that, they just throw you on the street. That's a very painful part of it. But for everybody, I think youth service is advised, because just simply because of that chance to get to know other people. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. Please, can you unmute and let us know what your thoughts are? Chi. Chi, unmute.
Sorry, thoughts on what?
And thoughts on, can we piggyback on the National Youth Service Corps, if you are aware of it, or what do you think we can piggyback on? You've talked about processes, so I know you have already said, you know, like we need an independent governance of policing, and also the processes need to be accountable and transparent.
We can, like for the NYSE or something, you can probably do that. Like where, as part of the National Youth Service, Nigerians are like told of their rights. Mm-hmm. I mean, because like I think like for a lot of us, I find like for a lot of when it comes to kind of like education, for a lot of us, it's already too late, because we can't all go back to school and be told. And I think like as well, the media could play a role in like, you know, re-educating your normal Nigerians about like what their rights are going forward, and like being able to kind of like maybe put ads in the newspaper to help kind of like push the new reform. You know, if police officer maybe stops you, this is what you need to know. This is what you can do. Like information out there for people to more or less be aware and know they're right. So yeah, there's
But what I would say to that, Chi, is that Nii said something about the growth mindset. So I don't think it will be for us to say because we are now over a certain age that we cannot learn. Do you think?
No, we can all learn. And what I'm trying to say is like, you know, I think like I know like here in the West, there's certain like citizen class that they do have here in the UK, where people of a certain age are told of, you know, what their rights are as a citizen of a country. So young people from a very early age are being made aware of what their rights are.
Mm-hmm.
But for us,
so there needs to be the re-education for people to know what their rights are.
Yeah.
There's an awareness of who they are.
For younger people coming up, there need to be a part of like a education curriculum added for young people to know what their rights are going forward. And then for us that have already gone through the education stage, there has to be a campaign in place to kind of like, you know, reintroduce like the new processes. You know, if a police officer was said to stop you while you're driving, and you know, this is what they need to do to be able to justify what the complaint procedures would be going forward for all the already adults. And like, I think that would give Nigerians more of a confidence to know, obviously, you know what, the issues that has been highlighted, that the politicians in place are taking it seriously. And you know, yeah, that's it.
Okay, Dr. Tony Agmons, Peter said something about he did the youth service, and after he finished, he was an engineer. So during his youth service year, he did not train as an engineer. He was trained as a teacher, and afterwards he was thrown out there, just like many other youth corpers. What would you say to that in terms of policing and across the board?
Thank you, Sosa. I think I was lucky in that I'm from Edo. I did my youth service in Ogun State, and I was just praying that they don't send me to a secondary school to be. My first degree is in microbiology. I said I don't want to go and be teaching chemistry or physics or biology. But I was lucky. I was sent to a pharmaceutical company in Ogun State, which was within my. Yeah, I think for the NYSC, I think at the moment the scheme is overloaded, because when that scheme was set up, how many universities did we have in Nigeria? So they could really like put a great percentage of Nigerian graduates, you know, in line with their profession. But with universities, state universities coming up, even the private ones that we have now, there's a lot of graduates. I think they even had to break the batches now to batch A, batch B, batch C. I was even hearing that I may even get to D, youth corpers just being churned and all that. So the scheme is good. I'm one of those that still advocate that it should still be kept, because it makes us to understand. I still have friends that I met at youth service from the north, middle belt, and everywhere. So, and it was very good. Yeah, you in that scheme, you really know that at that level, we are all united. We are Nigerians. We were all playing together and all that. So it's only when politics and tribalism come, things change the future. So the scheme is good, but like Peter said, we just try as much as possible to align people to what they studied. But again, as far as education is concerned in Nigeria, the youth service has also been a supply chain for teachers. Schools are waiting. When they go bring the corpus. So schools are applying to NYSC oh, we need science teacher, we need history teacher, and all that. So that aside, one other thing I want to say, I think, because I think Nii mentioned something like that. As far as citizenship education is concerned, I think we need to, even in our curriculum, because I'm in education now, we need to have citizenship education. I remember in secondary school, we had a subject, but we were not being assessed in it. It was called civics. I did civics in secondary school, but we don't, and we enjoyed it. We history of Nigeria, when the first rules were made, because we didn't do exam, all of us will be so relaxed because we know they won't take exam and all. So if that things like that can be reintroduced so that children can know the history of the country, our culture, the laws of the land, basic laws, like Alera was saying, you know, how you relate with people, know your basic right. Because most Nigerians don't even know their right. Most times I travel home and things happen. I say, and you just kept quiet. You didn't even challenge it. They say, please, I don't want trouble. So they don't know their rights, you know. So these are things that can be brought in.
All right, thank you very much. Dr. Inabulele, mindset, some quick wins that we can have to deal with the issues that we have.
Sorry, I didn't get you clearly.
I said quick wins that we can have to deal with issues. Is the National Youth Service Corps fit for purpose? Can it help policing? Can it help other areas of the country? As Tony said, Dr. Agbons, he said that it's actually helped to plug the gap in the teaching sector. So we're talking about youths who are saying, we don't have jobs. We need jobs. And we have an education system where teachers are needed. Is this something that we can use? Just like Peter said, they shouldn't be thrown out in the street after the youth service. Is this something that can be done for the good of the country?
Well, the National Youth Service Scheme, like many other schemes and sectors of Nigerian economy, it also shows, you know, evidence of decay, you know, over time. And I think the points raised by, I think, one of the speakers as to the fact that it's also not moving in line with the expected trajectory in terms of the population it's not serving, perhaps also is an issue. But I think one good thing about the NYC remains the fact that it still gives that opportunity for, you know, some level of unification of Nigerians from different backgrounds. So that remains an essential feature of it. And I think another thing that has been done, one of the salutary gains over the past few years, in spite of the general, you know, poor performance really of that scheme, is the fact that the whole concept of entrepreneurship was introduced to prepare youths for the labor markets, believing that, again, with the burgeoning population of Nigeria and the fact that the economy is unable to provide for all in terms of the public sector now, that building a capacity of the youths or graduates, you know, through those kind of schemes, we empower them to have an early start on their own, if also supported with the necessary capital, to, of course, rather than continual dependence on government and the public sector. So certainly for that salutary feature, I think it can be strengthened. And like the government, even though it's not total, it's trying to do, opening the doors for capital inflows to those artisans who are artisans, those who are involved in the small and medium enterprises, perhaps with some form of capital, may also assist. But again, we must have data to be able to monitor and track the whole process. Otherwise, you're just going to be throwing some, you know, funds to places that nobody really can track. So we must know how many of these youths desirous or in need or require this level of support, and then face it out over some years and be able to mop up the very huge, mass of unemployed youths and graduates in our country. So it's not enough. What I'm saying in essence is that it's not enough to acquire these entrepreneurial skills. What a lot of youths will tell you they lack, apart from the mentorship, is the necessary financial capital. So if that can be added, so that upon leaving school, you are sure of some level of support, then it will go a long way towards reducing the mass of unemployed youths in our country. Because again, when you have unemployed youths all over the place, restive youths, then of course they can also be used for all sorts of tendencies. So we need to be able to emphasize that even as we try to strengthen the National Youth Service Scheme to live up to his funding, to the aspirations of his founding fathers, principally the likes of Gowon and others who conceptualized the whole scheme, to see how it can further deliver on the aspirations of the founders of the scheme.
Thank you very much. I would also like to call on Isoke to say something here. We heard from, I think we heard from Alero that everyone depends on the knowledge of our legislators, that everyone don't know the what the Police Act says. And also what they say is that, oh, our lawmakers, they know. And what she said was that our lawmakers don't know anything, or they don't know as well. So in what way can we help to plug that in the system? It's okay, or Mrs. Ofili, if you can share some light on this, or share your thoughts on this. Igor Sagi has already said that the whole system needs to be improved. Okay, so what we are saying here is that the laws in Nigeria, what Alero is saying is that the laws are there, that before the police, they search you, you have the right to also search them. But people don't know the laws, and people rely on the legislators saying they know the law, and the legislators, they don't know the law. So how can we plug this knowledge gap from your experience in the UK, Mrs. Ofili?
Right. Well, I know that in the UK, obviously it's great difference from the practice. Actually, in Nigeria, we practice more of American system than the UK. But when it comes to plugging the gap between the systems, I would say
you are muted. If you can unmute. You are muted. We can't hear you. You're talking. You are muted.
Hello. Oh, sorry.
Okay. You were muted. We didn't hear you at all.
The police in UK are more educated than the more polished, and because the here so manage here the system that's in Nigeria. Automatically, the average person will see the police as authority, and they are not able to question what the police says. But here we have, because for instance, I studied here, so here the police will actually tell you your rights. You know your rights as well, more, and then you're not too afraid to express rights here, knowing that in UK there is the police here respects the citizen as well, more than Nigeria. I'm not saying that some of the things that happen in Nigeria don't happen here, But here you can, stand your ground more and express yourself more, because we're taught here to be able to express ourselves. So I would say in that respect, it's more balanced here. And also
so
the police, they're more
mutual respect.
There's mutual respect, and also there's accountability at the police. Yes.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Thank you. Yes, I can hear you. So there's accountability and there's mutual respect. I would like to call on Oge, if you can speak for 1 minute before I call on Igo Saige. Oh, sorry, were you going to say something, Mrs. Ofili?
No, I'm done.
Okay, thank you. Oge, if you can quickly talk.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you, Asosa. And
as a young person and somebody who has lived here in the UK, what are your thoughts from what you've heard?
Okay, thank you for that. Well, it's been amazing listening to all the speakers, and I've been quite insightful, all the different thoughts bouncing around. One thing I want to tap on is the topic on what to do with National Youth Service Corps. I think all that contributors so far has said stands like, yeah, it's quite valid. My own humble thought is that Nigeria is huge, and we can liken ourselves to China or India. So that means that we need to really work on technology development, help us. So basically, my thought is that if the country, if the government can harness an entrepreneurial academy to run side by side with an NYSC program, but more emphasis on the entrepreneurial academy, where people get in there because of what they can offer, intellectual property, development, whatever it is they can bring to the table that will feed back into the nation. Because Nigeria has loads of talented people, but there's, like somebody mentioned, not enough funds to support them. So I think more emphasis should move to something, a vehicle like that. And then obviously what they do will feed back into the nation in terms of developing it. And there'll be mechanisms to protect their intellectual property, and they get recognized for their contributions. And then people that can make it into that kind of an academy, and then filter back into the National Youth Service Corps and go through the process. And I think that way the nation will benefit from ideas of numerous young people out there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I think what I'm going to do now, because of the time factor, I will call on Igo Saige to talk, and Niyi, and then Kede will close. So Igo Saige, please, your thoughts.
All right, I think that social media has given Nigeria more democracy than any government has. And I think that social media is the right platform to participate in changing the country. The NSAS protests may have come at a very heavy cost in terms of property, in terms of security, but a significant milestone has also been met. Now everybody knows that it's a possibility. Everybody knows that people being fed up can lead to mass action. And everybody knows what the issues are on the table. On social media, there's a lot of noise, no doubt. But there's also a lot of information sharing and knowledge sharing. And it is left for us who are more knowledgeable, more educated, and more structured to not let social media become a tool of just fake news and ramblings. One of the days where to participate effectively in politics, and facing elements you don't want to face. Now from your mobile phone, you can be an active participant in democracy. So it is left for us to take social media very seriously, contribute, put our thinking and our minds together, so that whatever change or whatever positive gains we've made from this protest keeps ramping up. Now people are thinking 2023, you know what, even if it seems that the protest failed, we will make sure we effect in 2023. This is the kind of thing, these are the kind of things that that positive social media contribution results in. So for me, I think that trying to change the structure as it is from the normal way of doing things will not work. I think that we need a collective build-up which social media can provide.
Thank you. Niyi, please, quickly.
Okay. First, I will say thanks to everybody because I think this is the last time I will speak anyhow. So it's been very good exchanging ideas, expressing our concerns and love for the country. And so I close by the Youth Service Corps, the monitoring and unstructured data, which is what Osage was just talking about.
Yes.
For the Youth Corps service, I'm not so sure how relevant it is anymore. I think Dr. Ena Boule already talked around that. However, as far as I know, the concept is quite good because if I compare it to the Erasmus scheme in Europe, that scheme allows us, or at least allowed us, I'm not in university anymore, it allowed us to be in contact with various cultures, various thoughts. And it's all about sharing thoughts in the end. Why should Igbo guy listen to Peter or listen to Niyi? What do we have in common? This is what the National Youth Service Corps should be the main driver. And as Olga said, which I actually really did like, she brought it to the idea of creativity.
Yes.
They have a two-tier system, yes, which we may say is not right. But at the end of the day, I mentioned something fairly recently. It's called the return on engagement.
Yeah.
It's a fairly new concept, I would say, which means what is it in it for me? That is what is called the return on engagement. And what Oge was talking about there is precisely what return on engagement is all about. And I'll close by this. Alero kept coming back to the topic of monitoring. It's a very valid point. And Dr. Enabule also talked around it. If you don't, in fact, I thought he was reading my notes, but of course he wasn't. If you cannot measure it, you cannot improve it.
Yeah.
And that is what monitoring gives us. So we need to be able to constantly use the power of social media, as Osage just mentioned. Social media is unstructured data. That is what it is. But what it allows us is to understand what our people are discussing. And if we truly believe that we're creative people, we should be able to use that to move the country forward and to help in the police reforms. And thanks everyone for this discussion today. It's been very nice.
Thank you. Before Kede talks, I would like Dr. Enabulele and hold on 1 minute, and Alero to just give us 30 seconds each as a takeaway. Dr. Enabulele.
Well, thank you very much. It's been a very enthralling session. I commend the organizers. My point is that if we get it wrong this time, we may never get it right again. So yes, the SARS protest, the anti-SARS protest is on, but it must be seen as a necessary spark to ignite total reforms in the governance systems of Nigeria, because all sectors are affected. So this should be seen as just a spark to ignite that needed change, holistic reform in the affairs of our country called Nigeria. I thank the organizers for this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Alero.
Okay, thank you very much. I would like to say, irrespective of the fact that we don't live in Nigeria presently, I would urge all of us to use our respective power in whatever way, in every little way that we can, to make sure that we put meaningful impact on not just this NSAS, but to put an end to good governance in Nigeria, because we don't really have anywhere we can call our country. Nigeria will always remain our country, whether we like it or not. So I would urge us to just try as much as possible in whatever way to just try, because I know we have friends that can that can help in issues like this. And even if we don't have very influential people, our friends back in Nigeria, because I talk to people that look so, that have given up hope in Nigeria, people that live in Nigeria. And I have friends in the West that don't even want to go back to Nigeria because of their experiences they've had. So I would just implore us to just keep hope alive and
keep
try and make positive changes. Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So not to put an end to bad governance, and to always push for good governance. Peter, Peter, can you quickly talk? 30 seconds. Peter.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. It's a very big pleasure to meet some new faces today. Thank you, Alero. You experienced it all. You gave us your thoughts. Thank you, Mr. Niyi, for your deep thoughts. I personally want to say we should keep on believing, and let everybody know that our youths are not lazy. Our youths are innovative, and together we will get there. Thank you.
Thank you. So I would like to call on KD to give his closing remarks.
Well, I'll say thank you very much. It's everyone has talked. We've listened. Well, for me, I have listened, and I have to say that it's been a beautiful, wonderful 2 hours of deep thoughts, thinking, and ideas. And it will be counterproductive for me to repeat what everyone has said. I take it on board. I just think that for us, the best way forward is to take this conversation, and we're going to obviously release the videos, edit it, and continue talking. For me, I accept that, yes, there's a new order that is coming. It's not disorder, it's a new order. Nigeria will never be the same again. But the thing is, the political class must also get its act together. And that's where, whether they like it or not, they would have to just adjust, and things cannot be the same way again. And we've heard from different generations, I have to say, but it makes sense to encourage our people to keep on believing in Nigeria. It's a project that I think, regardless of the challenges, that we should not give up on Nigeria. Yes, some of us can be very critical and hard-hitting, but at the end of the day, like Alero rightly said, Nigeria is our country. We've got to fix it. And thankfully, there are millions of young people who will join us in this, in fixing it. So let me once again thank everyone for taking time out. It's not easy to spend 2 hours on a topic that may not necessarily be very exciting, but it has been very intellectually stimulating. So have a very wonderful weekend, and we will get in touch. And let me just quickly say this, it is still our 10th year of celebration at Nigeria Magazine. And so your support will be needed when we call on you to do things for us and give lectures. And so thank you very much. It was quite short notice for some of the speakers. And so we really appreciate that. And everyone, I think this, to me, this is one of the best interactive series that we've done in a long time, where everyone has chipped in, has done marvelously well. And so congratulations to everybody. And thank you very much. God bless you.
And we are going to be coming back to you like Oliver for more. So
thank you.
And have a very, very good weekend.
Bye.
Bye everyone.